Once upon a time, there was a miller. Now, the miller had favor with the king, and the king asked, "What do you have to offer?" So the miller said, "I have a daughter who can spin gold from hay." So the king said, "Okay, well, how about you show this to me?" So the next day, the miller brought his daughter to the king, and the king placed her in a room with a big pile of hay and said, "Spin this gold by the end of the night, or you'll lose your life." So the daughter sat there, weeping and crying, and thinking, "What am I going to do? I cannot spin gold." So a couple minutes later, a little man walked in the door. The little man said, "What's wrong?" The daughter said, "Well, the king has asked me to spin gold from this hay, and I cannot do that." So he said, "Well, I can do it. What will you give me if I can do it for you?" She said, "Well, I have nothing else to give, but I can give you a necklace." So she took the necklace off her neck and she gave it to him. So he sat there and went vroom, vroom, and span out a whole wheel of gold. Next morning, the king entered and said, "Whoa, you span the whole thing of gold. That's amazing." Well, she said, "Can I leave now?" He said, "No. You have to spin this bigger pile of hay." So she sat there thinking and hoping the little man would return. So in a couple minutes, the little man returned, and he said, "What's wrong?" "Well, I have to spin this bigger pile of hay, and I don't know how to do it." So she asked the little man, "Could you please do it for me again?" And he said, "What will you give me this time?" "Well, I don't know if I have any more left, but I have a ring on my finger. Would you like that?" And so he said, "Sure." So he sat there and vroom, 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 even faster. And by the morning time, the hay was all finished and all spun of gold. The king entered the room and said, "Whoa!" And this time he got a little bit greedier, and he gave her even more hay this time. Bigger piles of hay to spin more gold. So in a couple of minutes, the little man returned again. And he asked, "Do you have the same problem this night, my lady?" She said, "Yes, I do, but it's even bigger and bigger amounts of hay. Can you do it all?" He said, "Sure, I could, but what do you have to offer this time?" She said, "Nothing." So the little man said, "Well, how about when you become queen, you give me your first son or daughter?" The daughter said, "Sure, okay." She couldn't think of anything else to do. So he spun and spun and spun all night until it was all finished. And the next morning, the king took the daughter as his wife. So after she bore a child, the little man came into her room and said, "Well, can I have my child now?" And she sat there and cried and said, "No, I'll give you anything but my child." He said, "Well, you have 3 whole days to figure out my name. And if you can figure it out on the third day, then you can keep your child." So she found a messenger and she sent him out looking and searching for the most unusual names. And when he came back, she said, "Is your name Casper?" He said, "No." "Hillard?" He said, "No." "Skengly?" He said, "No." On the second day, the little man returned, and she had even more extraordinary names. "Oscarborn?" He said, "No." "Hillard?" He said, "No." And she mentioned like 5 more names. On the third day, she sent the messenger out, and he walked around the woods, and he heard a little man, hopping on one leg and crying, "Tomorrow I brew, today I bake, and then the child away I'll take. For little deems my royal dame that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." And he took this back to the queen and said, "Queen, I found it. I saw a little man, and he said Rumpelstiltskin is his name. So when the little man returned, she said, is your name, Harry? He said, no. John? He said, no. Rumpelstiltskin? And he said, what? A demon told you, a demon told you. And she just sat there and smiled in joy. And he turned and spun around and broke himself in half as he entered the ground.